Okay,
Thanks,
tēnā
Gay.
tēnā koutou katoa, ko Gay Dungey tōku anō, mā Nihi Mui, Sarah, Martin, Madhu, and Bethany. My name's Gay Dungey, and thank you very much to our speakers tonight, who are Sarah, Martin, Bethany, and Madhu. In the interest of time, I think we'll just get going. And I'll just get the speakers, so maybe to introduce themselves and just a little bit about their research topic. So who would like to go first?
Okay.
Right, thanks, Sarah.
So I'm Sarah Thompson. I'm a kia ora, Gay. I'm a radiation therapist from Christchurch Oncology at the Public Centre. I've been doing radiation therapy for 25 years, and this is my first dabble in research. We at work did a pilot study on looking at the perceptions of the radiation therapists receiving professional supervision in a program that we were piloting in Christchurch. So we just did a survey and an analysis, and yeah, I've just presented the results at ASMERT last weekend if anyone got to go. It was a great conference.
Thank you, Sarah. Martin.
Well, thank you, and it's lovely to see everyone online today. My name is Martin Necas, and I'm the clinical tutor for ultrasound imaging for the Waikato region. I've worked in ultrasound for a similar time to Sarah, probably about 27 years, and I have a wide range of research interests, but mostly having to do with efficiency of the care that we deliver and clinically targeted ultrasound. Essentially, I'm interested in decluttering complex protocols and looking at more efficient ways of delivering the same service, along with other clinical topics such as contrast enhanced ultrasound and a variety of others. I also have the pleasure of teaching a lot and presenting at conferences. It's always a pleasure to be in a forum of similar-minded people. So thank you for the invitation.
Great, thank you. Bethany.
Hi, I'm Beth. I haven't been working clinically all that long, just 5 years. However, last year I was given an opportunity to work with the University of Tasmania in a teaching role, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and that sort of kick-started my research career as well. So my current projects are looking into interfractional changes in breast volume with Mepitel film, and then also geographical remoteness as a risk factor for colorectal cancer survival in Tasmania.
Wow, well done. Madhu.
Hi. Sorry about a little bit of background noise because I've just moved my house and sitting in my shorts. That's why I'm covering up to here. So I'm actually a qualified nuclear medicine technologist and go by Madhu. Working in this field, oh gosh, 22 years now. And in the research, I'm active from last 13 years. So my first research interaction happened when the NEETer trial for the lutetium dotatate treatment came in. So I was a part of that project back when I was working in India in 2010. And from that time onward, I've been involved in mostly theranostic research, which is my, can say, more domain part. And that's why I'm another qualification, that's I'm a radiochemist as a qualified. So I work with making lots of radioisotope and radiopharmaceuticals. And in last 5 years, I worked a lot with lutetium labeled PSMA with prostate cancer patient, completing my doctorate in 2 months for the quality of life research, which I've done in space of theranostic part. And also in future, so that looks pretty interesting. We are working on various radiopharmaceutical preparation like actinium-based, terbium-based, and also yttrium-based, and the FAPI, which is a way ahead in the game in comparison of the FDG label radionuclide. FTG label-based identification of the tumor and the other type of pathological investigation. So my interest mostly in the theranostic and the other types of radioisotope labeling with other, pathology identification. So that's my, can say, simple summary of what my research is.
Thank you. Okay, so next question is how did you get involved in research, and what really was your motivation?
Because I was the last, I can take that.
Okay.
Yeah. So my first actually research interest came from my mentor in 2009 and 10, Dr. B. Krishna. I can take his name because he taught me a lot. He's like a well-published, above 300 publications. And when I used to look at his publication, the way of his style of teaching complicated stuff in a way easier manner and with a purpose, for not doing research for just the publication and going to the conference and taking some output on your name. Instead of that, if your research is making a difference in the society, then you're doing a research. Otherwise there's no point. So that's something actually stuck in my brain, and that's the point where I motivated, and I can say proudly I've been part of the most of the project back in India when we started lutetium production, lutetium dotatate production, which was way costlier if we see the developing countries' cost of giving care to those cancer patients. Then in New Zealand, when I came, I'm lucky again, we started lutetium PSMA treatment, lutetium dotatate production, and we are supporting national program here. So yeah, it's that motivation came from mentor. So that's how I get involved.
Thank you. And just as a note to everybody who's listening in, if you do have any questions, please pop them up on the chat. And when the panel session is over, the panel can answer them. We'll help you with that. Okay, who wants to go next?
Well, I'll jump in, if I may.
Sure.
So motivation for research, really in my case, it's similar to other people. It's curiosity and a little bit of rebelliousness on my part. In the field of diagnostic ultrasound, I saw a lot of dogmas in the ultrasound practice. And much of ultrasound clinical practice was based on opinion. Some systems and processes were antiquated largely due to apathy and complacency of practitioners. And I started to question whether what we do, for example, in terms of our imaging protocols, really is based on good evidence or not. Ultrasound is unique in that the extraction of diagnostic information actually requires physical labor to do it. And I saw an opportunity to improve, sort of streamline our processes, reduce some of the clutter in our protocols, and really look at whether we need to image patients comprehensively or whether a targeted approach would be much better. In terms of mentors and who would have helped me with it, it was largely a kind of a self-taught journey, because whilst I work in a very large tertiary teaching hospital, we're very much a clinical center, not so much a research center. So once I discovered that I wanted to sort of move towards the research side of things in order to improve clinical practice, I realized I needed the tools to do it. And that was largely through, university studies and doing a master's project. Since then, my team and I have published a wide variety of papers, debunking some of the myths in ultrasound, shortening examination times, as well as show that well-trained sonographers can also work independently, and that their accuracy is on a par of that of radiologists. And of course, this discovery has significant implications on how we practice ultrasound and where we allocate resources. So that'll be from me, really.
Thank you. Beth or Sarah?
Want me to go next? Oh, you go.
Nope.
You go, Beth.
So I got involved in research through my undergrad initially, like just through the honours pathway, which kind of gave me a bit of a taste and like the basic sort of understanding of research. But then my mind was sort of open to it when I started my PhD. And I found that quite overwhelming to begin with. But then what sort of kept my motivation going was being that I work in Tasmania, just the challenges that Tasmania has, being an island state that's sort of removed from the mainland of Australia, and the access that we have. So that motivated me to continue with the research, even though I find it quite challenging. But yeah, I think that was the most important thing for me, was that as sort of Martin touched on, it's a great way to sort of contribute back to radiation therapy clinical practice, but mainly improve quality patient care.
Yeah. Thank you. Sarah?
Okay, mine's slightly different to everyone else. I kind of had an ulterior motive with the research. Can I be honest? I don't know.
Yeah, be honest.
Yeah. I did a postgraduate certificate in professional supervision, and I wanted to provide a service at work, and my boss set me off and said, you have to prove that it's got the benefits that you say it has. And so I didn't know where to start. And so I presented at ASMERT last year about what it is and what I see the benefits of it. And then Gay approached me and said, would you like me to help or collaborate to do it properly? So it was great because she had all the skills to teach me, and we put out the survey and collaborated together. So it's been a great journey for me because it's something I never ever was on my radar. Didn't think it was something I was interested in. So it's been fun. It's been fun networking and talking about it, and actually having the proof that it worked. You know, the evidence is there that it's a program that we continue with, and so we succeeded. So it's been great.
Awesome. Good to work with you too, Sarah.
Oh, thanks.
Okay. So from there, so where are your research mentors, and how do you connect with them now?
I can crack on from what I just said, I suppose, real easy, because I've just done one research paper with Gay, so she's been a great mentor. She's been easy to get in touch with, and for me, because it's not really an interest, it's kind of research has always a bit scared me. She's been really approachable, kept it really simple, and made it easy, you know. So I think if I can do it, anyone can do it. So thanks, Gay.
You're welcome.
Perhaps I'll share my story. My story was very different. I already alluded to the fact that I did not really have people around me who could help me with that. So that I think is the case with many people who want to contribute to clinical research. And I think in that case, taking university courses in research methodologies and networking with individuals is very helpful. Essentially, when designing a research question, one needs to also know what's already been sort of published and what's known in the literature, and talk to experts who have an interest in that area, whether they are around you and can help guide you, or whether they can just provide an opinion. That really doesn't matter so much, as long as you ensure that you're on the right track. So I had to sort of do everything myself, and through the process, I've learned a great deal about the how research works. So then I'm now contributing to the research of others, for example, master's degree, advisory roles, and so on. And I would love for that to grow, so that clinical research in medical imaging is not something that just a few elite practitioners do, but it becomes a part of what we all do.
Yeah, that's very true, Martin. Beth?
I had quite a lot of people that have helped me along the way, but more like sort of specifically the research foundation at the hospital that I work at, which is the Clifford Craig Foundation. They have been sort of instrumental in providing me with support. So that all sort of stemmed from just a question that I asked at my workplace. From there, my deputy chief sort of sent me in that direction. And from there, I met a number of people that are involved in research that have sort of mentored me along the way. So helped in any way that they possibly could, specifically with stats, because I find stats quite terrifying. So they've helped me find courses, but also taught me a lot throughout my sort of journey. But yeah, I think they're the main mentors for me. My clinical educator at the hospital as well has always been a great person to talk to and to bounce ideas off of. As Martin said, the most important thing is when you develop a research question that you're finding the gaps, but you're also developing a really sound question that sort of guides your research and is very structured so that you don't end up down some random hole that you can't then dig yourself out of. So those people have been instrumental in helping me with my research.
Mm-hmm. All stems from one or two questions, doesn't it?
Yeah. Snowball effect.
The inquiring mind. Okay, Madhu.
I think it's about the finding the right mentor is the hardest thing. But as Martin said, and I just echo the thing, which Beth also said, that when you want to find a mentor, first you need to do your homework well. So that's something is important. Find what's your query, what do you want to know, and do your like a proper work. Even I would say read more about what have been done, because background, if you don't know, then there is no point to go with the research to your mentor to find that person, because right research question brings the right mentor to you, and then mentor's work you already done, then you can start from there. And so I would say finding right mentors, like same thing I did. You go with the right question, and it's very interesting that mentors networking. Sometimes you find the mentor, but mentors say, hey, I have this much of knowledge, but I have few networking which they can help you in this part. So then it brings a lot of other like a space open for you, and you can say, yes, I can do this research and that research. Because remember, research is, I would say, in my opinion, being an active researcher, you also need to understand how you can sell your research idea. You need to be a very well knowledgeable where you're heading to, who can take you there, and you need to find your mentor, and you need to prove it that why this research is so important. So you need to be smart enough, instead of just saying I'm an active researcher. No, you researcher. Everyone is researching. A 5-year-old can research well, but what is basically your research leading to? So understand that part. Very well networking, find right question, gap, background study, then you are spot on and can find some good solution out of it.
Good advice all round there. Okay. So do you have any advice for people like who want to get involved in research or help out? What would be your key points around this and how to help people? Martin.
So I'll pick it up because Madhu's already summarized it really well.
Yeah.
In the first instance, one has to have some familiarity with the subject to study. There's really no point in me trying to study anything in radiation therapy, for example. I'll leave it to the experts on the panel here. I need to look at things that I already know something about. So that's really number one. Then we might have a research question, but might be unaware that it's already actually been answered to a very satisfactory degree. So we need to do a bit of background work, just like Madhu stated. And then there's a good value in connecting with an expert in this area. And not everyone's expert in everything. So you really need to find someone who has an interest in that particular subspecialist field that you're thinking of going into. I think I always encourage people to start really small with a very specific question that they can study, something that is easily measurable, something that's quantifiable and not scary. Because in my experience, research tends to grow rather than shrink. So if you have a very broad question that's really difficult to contain, so something small, very specific, very measurable. And ultimately, one has to have the grit and perseverance to do it. Because let's face it, the research process can be annoying. It can be hard. The rewards are much, much further. It's a delayed gratification situation. And finally, I think some researchers, and we see this with, for example, master students and others as well, they think that they need to be able to do everything. They need to be able to do the recruitment, the documentation, the biostatistics, everything. But actually, no, you don't need to be able to do everything. You just need to be able to recruit the people to help you with that. And so finding help is absolutely essential. Those, I think, are the key points.
Yeah. Thank you, Martin. Beth, you got anything?
I completely agree with everything that has been said. For example, my project was quite small. The interfractional changes in breast volume started off as a very small question that we do every day in our clinical role, and that was, what's going on in this image, and is there a reason for it? So that started as a very, very small retrospective case study, basically, that then led into an audit, which then led into now my area of research in that regard. So it did start off with that very small question, but to add to what's already been said, just submitting an abstract or any sort of like, for example, we have in-services in your hospital. I think most people do. Just submitting something that interests you, so you can research something on a small scale and present it to your team or to the wider service. And just really taking those opportunities where they become available, asking questions and being persistent, being curious. Eventually you'll get pointed in the right direction. But yeah, I think just constantly asking questions and making sure you're prepared and doing those literature reviews.
Yeah. Sarah.
Yeah. I was thinking about this question today because obviously I'm a bit different to you guys in the research journey. But for me, it was just finding something that you're hugely passionate about. And I think if you've got passion for something, it will give you the motivation to be able to do anything. And so I never dreamed I'd present, like I said earlier. So to find something that gave me the courage to do that, and then the thought of having my name on a paper again, it just blows my mind that just the passion of doing something in the clinic has got me here today is amazing. Yeah, so just find it and then it will take you there.
Yeah, I do.
The one thing which I want to add with, because Martin already summed up where I started and he covered that, it seems like we had those two edges of the start and end point. The one thing which I definitely would like to add, which most of the researcher doesn't have, being critique on the things. And critique comes when you read more. So if you're not reading about your subject, so Sarah's point will come into this, passion brings the reading brings knowledge brings question brings gap brings your research question, head on, then you find your networking. So you need to start with reading, need to be critique, and then say, I want to change something. That's the point where research start growing. And always start anything which you think is a bigger picture. Start with a small pilot project. Try it.
Yes.
And then if you think that can work, then go for the bigger. So this is how you can work, and that's your networking work. Then you will find the gap. Here, this person can fit. Here, this person can fit. So that's what my advice is.
Brilliant. Thank you. Now, that's all very good advice, and I must say I agree. We do have some questions here in the chat, and I'm not sure if you guys on the panel have got the chat up, but the first one that's come through is for you, Beth, and it's how are your research ambitions resourced in your department? Do you have a dedicated FTE to your research? Loaded
Yeah.
question.
No, I don't. My FTE is at 0.5 with the hospital and 0.5 with UTAS split. But so my colorectal cancer research is associated with UTAS, but my Mepitel project is associated with the hospital. So I don't have any FTE to conduct that research. That is all in my own time, which is quite challenging, but I don't have sort of other competing things. So that's been okay. But the passion for it is what's helped me do that, you know, after the work hours and things like that. But no, I don't have any FTE for that.
And then there's another question here for you from Martin. Do you want to phrase it, Martin?
Oh, Beth, because you were talking about sort of access to care in remote areas, and this is something that, of course, affects Australia, New Zealand, and many other countries where people live in remote communities. Do you have any advice on how we improve the equity of service delivery to people who live far away?
Yeah, so in the space of colorectal cancer research, what we're hoping to sort of do is, because we actually only have 3, well, even 2 major hospitals in Tasmania. So most patients will have to travel quite a vast distance. And the major barrier that patients were having was that being that wait lists are so long as well, they would travel to their appointment and then that appointment was then cancelled. So there were 2 things that we hope that will bridge that gap and make that service more equitable. The first one being a private-public agreement for the colonoscopies, and the second one being a pop-up clinic, in a sense. So at the smaller district hospitals offering a pop-up clinic for colonoscopy.
Madhu, do you have a question?
No, I just have a small comment on Martin's question, because equity is something which exists. And I'm saying this is a political point which people will use in future for all the elections campaign. It will never get resolved. I'm blunt on it. I'm saying this is one thing. But like as a medical service provider, we try our level best to find the best solution. Like in New Zealand, we got our first mobile pet. And this is something which is we found revolutionizing the cancer care, cancer progressions. Like we are offering a gallium PSMA scan on our mobile pet. And that can be like easily trace the possibility of bringing more Maori community who are actually hesitate to come to the clinic. So, you know, those kind of solutions out there, the one thing which can be done for the equity, we all as a researcher or as a practitioner need to find a way how you can bring the technology on wheel, or you can make those things more accessible and easily, you know, adaptable for the people. So they should not hesitate, because there is a cultural, barriers. They don't want to come. So how we can go there and find those things, that's how you can address it.
Yeah. Right. And Martin, here's a question for you. How do you think and then I've got one for you too, Sarah. Martin, first, how do you think we can get more people in clinical motivated to get involved in research?
So
In an
I
ideal world where there's
ideal world,
departments
yeah.
fully staffed, yeah.
Yeah, so look, I've never worked in an ideal world, so I can speak from real world. I think I try to use infectious enthusiasm to motivate people to do research and also pursue higher degrees. Not everyone has the aptitude to do this, but I think if you lead by example, you probably have the greatest chance. In some cases, I've involved colleagues in parts of the study, for example, collecting data or analyzing the data together to spark their interest. That has led to quite a nice series of papers with good co-authorship and spreading the skills. I think that's really all you can do is you lead by example, you show them how exciting it is, and you also show them the changes that the research is bringing to the department. Because as it's the case at Waikato Hospital with our ultrasound department, we now work very differently to many other departments around the country. We can do more patients per unit of time than just about anywhere. And our sonographers have gained greater professional independence through evidence-based research. So there are lots and lots of benefits. And I'm always open to discussion with people who are willing to contribute or willing to do their own project. So it's my pleasure recently to have had a university student approach me to do a master's degree through our institution. We currently have a range of other papers that we're working on. It's very exciting.
Excellent. Sarah, since you tried to implement something into your department, how was the idea of implementing changes based on research received or perceived from the clinical staff, assuming that they were your colleagues?
They were my colleagues. How to answer that? It was probably more motivated from the boss to find the funding. So I think the staff were supported to implement the program anyway. So to have the research to support it, to secure funding, I think was the key. Because the supervisor, it was word of mouth, I think, of the supervisee's benefit of having supervision made it, sort of sold it to them. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, simply, yeah, yeah. And there's people that were doing that now, I guess. So has there been any follow on, like since the research is kind of finished, even though we haven't quite got it published, but has there been any more involvement since then?
Well, we've secured the funding and now it's a permanent resource. So we provide supervision, but just for 12 staff at the moment. So it'd be great to probably do more research to prove that the service needs to go out nationally. I mean, that's the goal, right? Isn't it? That all radiation therapists can receive supervision or have it available to them. So it's how do you fund that? Because we don't want to take FTE off clinical staff, so it's got to find it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
always going to be a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately. Comes down to money.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions?
I actually have a little comment with regards to what you were discussing with Sarah about implementation of changes that are based on good evidence. And we have made many changes in our department over the course of the last decade in order to be able to work more efficiently. Not many of these changes are popular because humans are creatures of habit and we like to just keep doing what we've always been doing. And my strategy is to simply show that the change is needed because it's based on good evidence and then implement it. And my experience has been that if you have a robust evidence-based strategy behind you, the grumbling will soon stop. And people who were the biggest opponents of any changes adopt it readily and become the biggest advocate and your friend again. So I think there is an element of leadership that we as researchers need to kind of adopt, not be scared to be a little bit pushy and persistent if it is for a good cause that's substantiated by good evidence. So when I said at the beginning of the presentation, I'm a little bit of a rebel. I'm only a rebel when I have good evidence behind me.
Great. Well, if no one else has any questions, then I would just like to thank the panelists very much. I think it's been a very good, informative little session, and has obviously will spark some more questions, and I feel a part 2 coming up. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy your evenings.